Hello guys, Andy from Next Gen Base here, and welcome to our review of Blasphemous 2. The sequel to one of my favourite games of 2019, developed by the Game Kitchen and published by Team 17, Blasphemous 2 is a Metroidvania style action RPG with Souls-like elements, that very quintessential Andy game. The player once again takes on the role of the Penitent One, albeit a very different Penitent One to the first game, as established in the opening cutscene. This Penitent One has been tasked with climbing to the heights of the very biblical city in which the game is set, and preventing the birth of what would appear to be the second coming of Christ. However, this time he is up against a rogue gang of his own kind. With visuals that can only be described as Christsploitation, it's full of all the lovely pixel art graphics of the original, complemented with some beautiful animated cutscenes, with a haunting score and a fully voiced cast of characters which can be swapped out to a Spanish language soundtrack to deepen the immersion into the game's world. And what a world it is, with a very Metroidvania style progression gated behind skills and weapon abilities. Blasphemous 2 has a huge map to explore. The map is certainly large, but the game will do a very good job of pointing you in the right direction to help you navigate through Blasphemous 2's various dark locales. These range from caves to underground dungeons, deserts, and dilapidated mansions, and all sorts of inhospitable areas full to the brim with a nasty cavalcade of enemies. Central to all of these locations is the City of the Blessed Name, Blasphemous 2's hub location, and it's here that you'll find many of the game's NPCs and shops, ready to help you level your character up, gain new abilities, and tackle some of the more challenging areas of the game. You'll be returning to the City of the Blessed Name quite frequently, and thankfully the map will automatically add icons showing you where you can find the most helpful of these NPCs. The map in the game is presented in the usual Metroidvania style, with rooms as boxes, but with the ability to add markers to points of interest on the map like inaccessible chests. You'll find that it's easy to be able to backtrack and find areas that you need to explore as you upgrade and gain new abilities. There are plenty of secret items to find in the world of Blasphemous 2, and the savvy player will make sure they explore to the fullest to be able to go into the late game battles as leveled up as possible. The downside, of course, to that is that it is pretty easy to get sidetracked going after all of those shinies and secrets, but thankfully there are shortcuts and fast travel points to be found that will make exploration quicker for return visits to areas. You'll also want to revisit areas to find other things to do, from quest-giving NPCs and other collectibles that will help you unlock even more secrets within the game. One of the more notable additions to Blasphemous 2 is the multiple weapons on offer, rather than just the sword of the first game. The player will start out with a choice of one of these three weapons, and they are quite the arsenal. You've got the choice of the Rego al Alba, a balanced weapon which takes the form of a curved sword which can heal the player as they deal damage to enemies and delivers a blistering parry attack. And this is the gameplay style that is more similar to the first game. Then you have Sarmiento and Cantiella, a dagger and sword combo which favours speed and starts with a sliding attack and a parry, but the parry doesn't quite offer the same sort of riposte, and I found these to be the weaker of the two weapons and the trickier to use. Then you have what is easily my favourite weapon in this game, the Veredicto, a big smashy ball on the end of a chain. It is slow but with a great range and very powerful, and also includes a shorter ranged charge attack out of the gate, and has attacks that generate fervour, which is the game's magic. So this is very much a magic based weapon, you can use that further to also charge the weapon with fire to deal extra damage. It's got a good knockback ability to it and can even deal twice as many hits per attack if you manage to aim correctly, and it's a great choice for anyone looking for a magic build in this game. Each of the weapons has an upgrade tree which you can progress through to add new abilities and strengths to the weapons, and different weapons also allow you to traverse the world in a different way, meaning that you'll be tackling the game differently in the early hours depending on which weapon you pick. Fortunately, you will find all of the weapons as you explore the world, meaning that all of these routes will eventually become open to you, and you'll need to switch between them on the fly to access some of the more inaccessible areas and secrets that the game has to offer. In addition to the weapons that are on offer, you also have prayers, which are the game's equivalent of spells, and they use fervour to cast, which is a blue bar that you'll find underneath your red health bar. These take the form of projectiles or area of effect attacks, and coupled with the weapon choices will start players well on their way to crafting a unique build. Combat very much ebbs and flows between the use of these weapons and prayers, but there are a few other abilities available to the Penitent One to help him in his quest. A dodge slide, for example, can be used to not only gain access to areas hidden behind small nooks, but can also be used to dodge through enemies' attacks. Pair this up with a standard jump and you have various different ways to traverse the environment and tackle some of the challenging enemies and boss characters that the game throws in your direction. As well as weapons and prayers, players will be able to find favours and rosary beads as they explore the world, and these are special items which you can slot into different item slots on your character to give you stat boosts. Favours in particular are quite significant addition to the game and provide boosts to your character's abilities. These can only be slotted by talking to a particular NPC, and combinations of them will give significant boosts and secret buffs if you use them in the right way. Rosary beads, however, give smaller bonuses, for example resistance to particular types of attack, or the ability to gain more experience points as you kill enemies, and these can be swapped out on the fly as you explore the game. Weapons and prayers and these stat boost items all combine to allow players to create builds which are very much suited to their particular style of play. Obviously, an RPG would be nothing without the ability to upgrade your character, and Blasphemous 2 has two options available to players. As you defeat enemies, you will earn Tears of Atonement. These are effectively the game's souls and are used to buy new items from merchants, like new rosary beads or favours, or bonus items which will unlock stat boosts. Also, by defeating a certain number of enemies, you will earn Marks of Martyrdom. These are used to upgrade weapons and buy more significant things like slots for extra favours. Unlike most Souls-like games, you won't lose your tears or your Marks of Martyrdom on dying, but you will create a guilt fragment at the point at which you died. This has two effects, one positive and one negative. The guiltier you are, the more Tears of Atonement and Martyrdom points you gain for defeating enemies, but it also reduces your character's defense and the amount of fervour they can gain. To return all of this to normal, you have to either hunt down the guilt fragment and destroy it, or you can go and talk to an NPC who will rid you of all of your guilt and return you to normal. There are of course other items to be found throughout the world which will help you level up your character, but these are fairly well hidden, and some of which you might not even find a use for until you hit the mid-game. Combat in Blasphemous 2 is built around learning patterns and reading tells, with some smaller enemies requiring specific weapon skills to best and bosses being a lesson in patience and perseverance. There are of course some tough encounters, but never anything that feels unfair, and the game teaches you the skills you need to tackle everything that the enemies will throw at you. But do expect some regular difficulty spikes, from tricky encounters with multitudes of enemies to bosses which require you to put into practice everything you have learned to the point at which you face them. Blasphemous 2 won't always hold your hand, but it's always a great feeling when you finally manage to pull through and overcome these tough encounters. We played Blasphemous 2 on Nintendo Switch, and the game was no slouch, hitting a solid 60 FPS almost all of the time with only a handful of notable slowdowns. While we didn't notice any particularly buggy issues, there were a couple of problematic areas where the camera seemed to misbehave, snapping the view so that the player character was stuck at the top of the screen. This wasn't necessarily problematic, but it was quite jarring when the screen would shift vertically quite abruptly. Controls are tight across handheld and docked, and Blasphemous 2 should perform well on any platform you decide to throw it at. A solid sequel to one of 2019's best titles, Blasphemous 2 is a challenging action RPG with an immersive world and mechanics that build upon its predecessor to encourage you to find your own way to play. A game which is tough but won't overstay its welcome, Blasphemous 2 is an easy 8.5 out of 10 and a highly recommended title whichever platform you choose to play it on. Thanks very much for watching. If you have enjoyed what you've seen, don't forget to leave us a comment below and do give the video a like. It is very helpful for the channel. If you want to see more of these videos, you can subscribe down below, and we will see you next time on Next Gen Base. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.